Hey, hello, everyone. This is criminal profiler Pat Brown, and the probable cause affidavit in the Delphi case has been released, redacted, but released. And I thought I would comment on, I'll read you a little bit of it. I will comment on what I think about each of the aspects of this case. And do I think they have the right guy? Do I think they have enough for the probable cause? And do I think the defense attorney is right that this is weak? All right, so let me get to it. All right, the probable cause affidavit. Let's see, it just starts out with the basic stuff. Talks about the victims on February 14th, 2017. They were found deceased in the woods approximately 0.2 miles northeast of the Monon High Bridge in Carroll County. Their bodies were located on the north side of Deer Creek. Now, it goes on a little further just about the information about the layout of the land there. And then they talk about when the girls were dropped off. They said that victim 1 and victim 2, it is believed they were dropped off across from the Mears farm at about 1:49 p.m. And they talk about where the Mears farm is located. Now, then they say that they talk about the video from victim 2's phone that shows that at 2:13 p.m., victim 1 and victim 2 encountered a male subject on the southeast portion of the Monon High Bridge. The male ordered the guys down the hill. No witnesses saw them after this time. No outgoing communications were found on victim 2's phone after this time. And then their bodies were discovered on February 14th, 2017. So that's the basic layout. Now, here comes some interesting point here. The video recovered from victim 2's phone shows victim 1 walking southeast on the Monon High Bridge while a male subject wearing a dark jacket and jeans walks behind her. As the male subject approaches victim 1 and victim 2, one of the victims mentions gun. I find this very interesting because a lot of people have asked, how did this person, Bridge Guy, who is now being named as Richard Allen, how did Bridge Guy get these girls to cooperate? And my feeling has always been he had a gun, because that is the easiest way. You can use a knife and try to, tell people what to do with a knife, but you've got two girls and maybe they could run for it with a knife because they think they can get away. But when somebody is pointing a gun at you, everyone knows that you can't outrun a gun. You just get shot. So I always believed he likely had a gun to control them. This also takes away the idea that you have to have two people to control the girls because, how could one guy do it? Gun. That's how one guy does it. Just pointing the gun at the two girls and saying, down the hill, guys, that's enough. And they're going to go where he tells them to go. All right, so we know something new now, that a gun was involved in this crime as far as being able to control the girls. Now, near the end of the video, a male is seen and heard telling the guys, down the hill. The girls then proceed to go down the hill, and the video ends. Still a photograph taken from the video and the guys down the hill audio was subsequently released to the public to assist investigators in identifying the male. They did not release the information about the gun. They may not have done that at this time because they didn't want the guy to get rid of the gun. They didn't know much about the gun, perhaps, and that could have been an issue. However, as we're going to see further in the probable cause affidavit, they did have some evidence from this gun. So it's interesting that they didn't release this sooner in order to find somebody to identify the person who had this gun. However, the problem may be that it wasn't identifiable enough at that point in time as to what the gun was. They thought he would still get rid of the gun. So these are the decisions investigators have to make to determine, hey, what kind of risk do we take on this? Do we give out too much information or too little information? So they decided to keep this issue about the gun, under wraps. All right. So now, next part here. Let's see. Victim 1 and victim 2's deaths were ruled as homicides. Clothes were found in the Deer Creek belonging to victim 1 and victim 2. I thought that was interesting. They're found in the Deer Creek, south of where their bodies were located. There was also and here comes the reason that Allen was arrested. There was also a .40 caliber unspent round less than 2 feet away from victim two's body between victim one and victim two. The round was unspent and had extraction marks on it. Now, I'm going to explain some of this. How does this even happen? So I don't know why there's an unspent bullet there. It's hard to say. Did he have extras in his pocket? I have no idea how it got on the ground between victim one and victim two, but it shouldn't be there if it belongs to him unless he brought it there. Now, you would ask, how do they have extraction marks on it? Well, on an unspent bullet. Well, this is how that works. Sometimes people cycle bullets through their gun to see if it's loading properly, and they don't actually fire the bullets, but they are live ammunition, and they cycle it to see how it works. If everything's going well, and they get that those extraction marks on there. So, if you're going to leave a bullet at the scene, probably not a wise idea to run it through your gun and have it match your gun. I'll go further on that when they explain that issue. All right, so the next part is about people who saw a person on the trail. And I'm not going to go through all the different people who say they saw him, but there are a number of people, especially a couple of younger girls, who said they described him. And of course, he has admitted to being on the trail and going to the bridge that day. So it's not like they saw this guy and it simply couldn't have been him. He was there and he admitted to being there. So that people would have seen him makes sense. But here's what gets very interesting. All right, so hold on, I have to go down here a little bit longer. So we have lots of descriptions about, there's also a description on the car that in a parking area that people think they described the car, which could be his car. Not absolute, but that's interesting. Let's go here. This is where I want to find this one spot. Oh, now, apparently, people saw him on the trail before the crime, but they never saw him on the trail after the crime. So not coming from the crime scene or not anywhere else in that park area. However, somebody did see a man walking down the road. And I thought this was extremely interesting. Let's see. Investigators spoke with someone who stated that she was traveling east on 300 North. And so if you see Monon High Bridge here, this is 300 North. So after the homicides, the person obviously walked up here. The cemetery is here. That's one of the possibilities. I thought the guy may have parked at the cemetery and walked in, but apparently he parked someplace different, but he did do the same walk here. So this person obviously came back up here and got up to the 300 North. So anyway, this woman was traveling east on 300 North on February 13th, 2022, and observed a male subject walking west on the north side of 300 North away from Monon High Bridge. He advised, because it's an empty spot there, that the male subject was wearing a blue-colored jacket and blue jeans and was muddy and bloody. How interesting is that? She further stated, it is female. She further stated that it appeared that he had gotten into a fight. Investigators were able to determine from watching the video from the Hoosier Harvest Store that this person, that's blanked, this blank spot again, was traveling on CR 300 North at approximately 3:57 p.m. All right, so now we have people who saw him on the trail prior to the girls getting murdered, and then after that, they didn't see any. He's not on the trail, but there's a guy walking down the street, muddy and bloody. All right, coming from Monon High Bridge. All right, so that's pretty good stuff there. Now, it says here, does point out again, Mr. Allen was on the trail between 13:30 and 15:30. He parked at the old Farm Bureau building, that's what he states, and walked to the new Freedom Bridge. While at Freedom Bridge, he saw 3 females, and he talks about those females. He said he did not speak with them. He walked from the Freedom Bridge to the High Bridge. He did not see anybody, although he stated he was watching a stock ticker on his phone as he walked. He stated that there were vehicles parked at the High Bridge trailhead. However, he did not pay any attention to them, and he did not take any photos or videos. All right, so there he was on the trail, unquestionably. All right, now, the next thing is interesting, I think. It goes on back and forth about the girls seeing a guy like him, and he's seeing some girls. So there's no question he's on the trail. Absolutely none. Now, later in his statement, let's look at why he supposedly went there. All right. On October 13th, 2022, Richard Allen was interviewed again by investigators. He advised he was on the trails February 13th, 2017. He stated that he saw juvenile girls on the trails east of Freedom Bridge and that he went on to the Monon High Bridge. Richard Allen further stated he went out onto the Monon High Bridge to watch the fish. Sorry. Sure. Weren't fishing. You just want to watch the fish from way up on the bridge. Okay. Later in his statement, he said he walked out to the first platform on the bridge. He stated he then walked back, sat on a bench on the trail, and then left. He stated he parked his car on the side of an old building. He told investigators that he was wearing blue jeans and a blue or black Carhartt jacket with a hood. He advised he may have been wearing some type of head covering as well. He further claimed he saw no one except the juvenile girls he saw east of the Freedom Bridge. He told investigators that he owns firearms and they are at his home. Now, so he does own firearms, which is not unexpected in this particular area, but they're obviously looking for somebody who owns a firearm that could have that particular piece of evidence that they'd found to match to it. Richard Allen's wife, Kathy Allen, also spoke to the investigators. She confirmed that Richard did have guns and knives at the residence. She also stated that Richard still owns a blue Carhartt jacket. On October 13th, 2022, investigators executed a search warrant of Richard Allen's residence. And let's see, what did they find? Jackets, boots, knives, firearms, including a Sig Sauer Model P226 40 caliber pistol. All right. Now, between October 14th, 2022 and October 19th, 2022, the Indiana State Police Laboratory performed an analysis on Allen's Sig Sauer Model P226. The laboratory performed a physical examination and classification of the firearm, function test, barrel and overall length measurements, test firing, ammunition component characterizations, microscopic comparison, and NIBIN, which I'm not sure what that is. The laboratory determined the unspent round located within 2 feet of victim 2's body had been cycled through Richard M. Allen's Sig Sauer Model P226. It matched. All right, it matched. So now, this is pretty much what is said in this affidavit, the probable cause. Now, is this enough for a probable cause? I do believe so. There's 3 reasons. 1, he admits to being on the Monon High Bridge on the date the girls were murdered, around the time the girls were murdered. There are enough witnesses identifying a guy that looks like him near that area, also up here, coming from the crime scene, essentially, and away from it, muddy and bloody. Okay, those, and then the third one, they found a bullet from his own gun in between the 2 bodies, and it matches because they do have markings that match. So it's not just that, it's not like an ammo that he had some ammo like that. It's not like that. It is that. That's what they were able to determine through all the testing, that it cycled through his actual gun. Not just a gun that's like that, but that gun. All right, so is it reasonable to believe in a probable cause? Is it reasonable to believe that this amount of information puts him at the scene where the girls were murdered? And the answer to that is yes, absolutely. And so the probable cause is perfectly fine. Now, the defense attorney is going to say it's thin because he's going to say, well, just because he was in the area doesn't mean he did it. He's going to say that, hey, the witnesses may have seen a guy that just looked like him, but it wasn't him. He was not identified specifically by any of the witnesses. And then he's going to say something like, well, okay, but the bullet gets a bit more difficult because he does confess that nobody else has ever touched his gun. And he also says he's never been in that area before. Okay, so how did it get there? In between the two bodies, mind you. Not a mile away, but in between the two bodies. How do you explain that? And he can't explain it. Now, the defense attorney might say it was planted. That's where they go when they can't explain things. And they would maybe have to say, well, let's see, how would that even work? I'm trying to think how you would say this was planted, because I like when people come up with these arguments and they go, well, see, it could have happened this way. Well, they would have taken, when the crime scene was first taken care of, when they analyzed everything and bagged everything and all that, took their photos, that bullet had to be there. A bullet had to be there, and it had to be collected and it had to be properly stored. And the only way that the police could have planted it would be that after they decided to nail him for the crime, they somehow got hold of his gun, ran some bullets through his gun, and then switched out the bullet that was in the bag, in the evidence bag, for the bullet from his gun. All right. I know a bunch of people are going to say that happened, and I'm going to say it didn't happen. They're not stitching this guy up, okay? They're not. There's better guys to stitch up, not this guy. This guy, really, nobody had a clue about. He doesn't have a criminal record. He wasn't already in their, in their sights. So out of the blue, they're just not going to pick some guy that works at CBS. Let's nail him. They're not going to do that. So they truly believe, and I believe they're correct, that this is the guy that is Bridge Guy. And he was seen by a person that looked just like him, was seen right around there, and he wasn't seen after the crime time, except for some guy that looks just like him going up here being muddy and bloody. Another thing, there's a couple other interesting points I want to make. Let's see. I just had it in my head, and now it's flown out of my head. Gosh. I really wanted to make the point too, about, wait a minute. Wow, I've really forgotten. Isn't this a wonderful way to end a video? This is it. Oh, thank God I remembered. This is an unedited video like I always do. So sorry about that, guys. All right. The defense attorney said that nothing in this affidavit, probable cause, said anything about a second person. And yet the prosecution is saying they don't want to give up this information because they're looking for yet another person. It's interesting that he's not seen with another person on the trail. No other particular person is seen around there. No other person is seen walking with this guy down here. There's no second person seen anyplace. So I don't know where the second person comes in. If there is such a person, it could be somebody who helped him after the crime, maybe a wife or somebody, maybe she hid stuff for him. I don't know. And maybe if you go back to the old catfishing thing, maybe somehow he got hold of the information about the girls going there, and that's why they have that second person. But I still don't see that there's two people involved in the murder of these girls. I've always said this appears to me to be a serial homicide, a serial killer, and serial killers rarely, especially married guys who live in the area, rarely work with a second person. That's too risky. They just don't do it. They sneak out and do their stuff and sneak home. Serial killer couples and duos are usually either a married couple or like couple cousins. They're driving around the country picking up hitchhiker girls and they kill them together. That kind of thing. But rarely do you have a stable married man work with anybody else. So I've always believed this was a serial killer kind of crime. One person and not two people at the crime scene. And so far, I'm not seeing any evidence that it was a second person. Was there somebody else, I say, helping him in some way at some point? Perhaps, or just somebody who knew of him or some kind of contact through something. So I don't know. Or did you just see the girls and just say, hey, I see couple girls, and I'm following them. I don't know why the prosecution is saying there might be a second person involved. I don't know. But clearly, as far as the remember when we heard about the search of the river for what appeared to be for a gun? Well, the gun wasn't in the river. The gun is at his house. So there you go. It also shows that if this is him and he's found guilty, he's not the brightest guy, And sometimes this is what happens with serial killers a lot of times. And I'm not saying he is one. I don't have proof of that yet because we haven't found what other crimes he might have done, if he's even done this one. But usually what you have is this kind of bell curve thing, where in the beginning, sometimes there's some rapes or sexual homicides. And in the very beginning, they screw up because they don't know what they're doing. And then time goes on and they get pretty good at it and they cover up. And then later on, they get careless because they get so overconfident. They just get careless. He allowed himself to be seen by a number of people. He obviously left some stuff at the scene of the crime, which he shouldn't have done. He got video, which praised the girls for, they're smart. They're smarter than him. And as far as where his vehicle was parked in a location where he had to walk back to it down a highway. That's why I thought he might have parked at the cemetery, because it was at least an easier way to slip into the woods. But to actually have to walk down the highway is not the brightest thing. So I'm not going to say this guy's got a high IQ here. But you can get away with things due to luck and a few other, just the stranger homicides. People don't quite properly identify you, and there's a lot of other people in the area who look like you, and this goes on and on. So I think they've got something pretty good on this guy. I hope they have more. I'm still curious of how they finally came up with him, because something had to link, because for all these years they've had that bullet, and that bullet didn't link to him. So what made them finally hone in on him so that they could find the gun to link to the bullet? What did that? And that's the part I think is still a big secret. And maybe we'll find out eventually what that was. And maybe we'll find out there is more evidence, and it's just not in the probable cause affidavit. David, maybe there are souvenirs. Maybe there was some DNA they're still working on. Maybe somebody ratted them out. I don't know. And we'll have to wait to find that out. But at least I'm glad they released the probable cause, because I think we can see now, at least I hope everybody understands, this guy's not being stitched up. If there's a bullet at the scene between the two bodies that matches his gun, that's pretty good, along with the witnesses and the video. And pretty good stuff. So anyway, that's my thoughts on this today. If you're new to the channel, please do subscribe and check out all the cases that I have analyzed. Do like the video, share with other people who'd like to get what I consider a rational analysis of things rather than just gossip. And I hope that does help people understand things better and how things work. And I appreciate you being here, and I will probably see you again when we get to a point maybe near the trial time, and I'll have something more to say. Bye.